Federal authorities are seeking the death penalty for Boston Marathon suspected bomber, accused bomber, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. Now, Massachusetts, of course, does not have the death penalty, but the law does allow for federal authorities to instruct the death penalty to be sought by prosecutors in particularly heinous or egregious crimes. Now, if you remember, of course, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, one of two alleged bombers involved in the Boston Marathon bombing back when the race was run, ultimately captured hiding in a boat in the outskirts of Boston, unable to speak for some time, eventually able to speak to prosecutors and investigators, and ultimately now will be charged with as the only surviving alleged perpetrator of the Boston bombing, and the death penalty is on the table. I think that this is a bad idea, and not because this isn't a heinous crime, not because Dzhokhar Tsarnaev does not deserve to be punished for the crime that he is accused of having committed if he is indeed found guilty, but because even if we go beyond, so let's take a step back. I'm against the death penalty, and the number of reasons I'm against the death penalty could fill an hour or more program, and these include the disproportionate application of the death penalty on poor and minority individuals, the fact that we know of at least 5 to 10 people who have been put to death by the death penalty who ultimately turned out to be innocent of the crimes they were convicted of because of the expense of the death penalty, given the number of appeals that you are entitled to. And of course, also because of the fact that it has not been shown to be a deterrent to crime, and as such, really seems like a practice that we should eliminate the same way so many other countries at our level of development have. But I want to take it a step further with this specific case. If you were to agree that the death penalty should be on the table for particularly heinous crimes, including, as some describe here, incidents where multiple people are killed, what does that say to someone who lost a family member in an individual homicide compared to someone who lost one family member while other people were also killed? Is the loss of their one family member, when it was a lone killing, less egregious or less punishable than the loss of one family member when the perpetrator also killed other people unrelated to your family member? I think that that idea further makes the application of the death penalty capricious and arbitrary.
Right. It does seem to take away from those individual homicides, I guess. And, I don't know how I would feel about that. I mean, I can certainly understand multiple homicides being a bigger deal, but also, I mean, I'm assuming that he probably wants to die. I mean, why give him what he wants?
There
Throw
are
him in
so
jail for
many
life.
cases where you may have someone who believes they will be a martyr if they are put to death, and that's what they want. That is also a reason for those who say, we want the strictest possible punishment. If I think about the possibility of spending the rest of my life in prison for a crime I committed versus being put to death, if I think I'm going to be a martyr by being put to death, it's worse for me to spend the rest of my life in prison. And if I don't think that, I still would think it's worse to spend the rest of my life in prison, because you have to live that as opposed to lights going out. I'm not saying that should be the standard, what is worse for the perpetrator. But if that is your standard, then you should also be against the death penalty.